You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button.
I feel good about it. I mean, this is our team. I wanted to finish out with it. My athletic director wanted me to finish out with it. We haven't blinked. We moved forward. It's the focus really now is on Ole Miss, and really not much has changed.
Ed Orgeron Wednesday explaining his decision to coach out the remainder of the season after he had received the news that he won't be back in 2022. Let's be honest, there's also 17 million reasons why he didn't walk away from the remainder of this season, part of that negotiated settlement for Ed Orgeron's contract. But this is, I think, the best path forward for LSU and for Ed Orgeron. One thing, and when you cover a team, you kind of get to know players and coaches and tendencies. And one of the things that I believe to be a reality of circumstance with Ed Orgeron is when there is little pressure, I think he thrives. I think he can be his positive message, his energy, his one team, one heartbeat, all of that stuff, all of that rah-rah, the competition Tuesday, tell the truth Monday, all of that stuff plays. But when things aren't going well, nobody wants to hear about Wonderful Wednesday and Terrific Tuesday and all that sort of stuff. Like, you want to plan. And I think that's where Orgeron during his time has, when things are stressful, there is an erosion. Ole Miss, it was not good. And you heard all of the stories about Ed at Ole Miss. Berating assistants, throwing chairs, all the sort of stuff. When he was at SC and Lane Kiffin got fired in 2013, Ed Orgeron went 6-2. Why? There was no pressure. Yeah, he wanted that job, and I'm sure some part of him felt like he was coaching for that job, but realistically, he wasn't coaching for that job. There was no pressure. It didn't matter realistically if he won or lost. He wasn't coaching for a job he had, to keep the job he had. He came in at a time when things, weren't great, and there was no pressure. Coach had been fired. There was no expectation. And he did well. Went 6-2. 2016, Les Miles gets fired. Same situation, 4 games into the season. Same thing. He had a loaded roster. He had little to no expectation as everyone was talking about what was next. It's really just let's get through the season, have some fun sort of thing. 6-2 the rest of the way. Lost to Bama, lost to Florida. Not saying that he was okay losing those games, but you saw the offense open up. You saw players be lighter, looser, all that stuff. Flip side of it is, look at the start of 2017. He gets the job full time. He and Matt Canada are feuding. They're at each other's throats. And boy, they stumbled out the gates. It was bad when things were bad. 2015, when you had Joe Burrow and you were boat racing everybody, brother, one team, one heartbeat, hype videos, all love. He was energy. He was the face of it. That's where he thrives. 2020, social justice, Bo Pelini, no good, 5-5, boom. Look at everything that happened. This year, same thing. Knew he was coaching for his job. Gets blown up by Kentucky. They're fighting before the game. The hype video that didn't play. All that stuff. After Kentucky, Ed Orgeron was told that he wasn't returning. The public didn't find out until Sunday. Ed knew last Monday. So he coached the Florida week and coached the Florida game knowing he was not going to be back as LSU's head coach. And LSU went out there, played loose, played light, won the game. When you look at the remainder of this season, I think you see that Ed Orgeron, a guy that's not coaching with the burden of expectation. He's coaching out the string. He is a lame duck coach, which in essence is the same thing as being an interim coach. You're the coach right now, but you're not going to be the coach when the season ends. And when LSU beat Florida, it's changed, I think, the perception of what this team can be. Remember a couple of weeks when they lost to Kentucky, the only game that they were favored in the remainder of the season, either Vegas or like something ESPN's FPI, the only game they were favored in the rest of the season was ULM. And when you were sitting there at 3-3, the ULM game, you win that, you'd been 4-8, would have been your best bet. Well, you go out, you beat Florida, and you're going to count the ULM game as a win. So can you snag another win somewhere along the way to get to bowl eligibility? I think so, because I think what you're going to see over the next 6 weeks is interim Ed. You're going to see the guy that doesn't have the burden of expectation and pressure and results and has more of a free, loose, energetic feel to him. I think that's the guy you're going to see for the next 6 weeks. 5 games over 6 weeks, and I think it's going to serve LSU well. And that's reflected in a lot of the metrics. I mentioned FPI. Remember, after Kentucky, the only game the rest of the way LSU was favored in, according to this metric, was ULM. Now, look, they're a decided underdog at Ole Miss. They just got just a 28% chance, according to FBI, of winning that game. And they got just a 6% chance of beating Alabama. But it's flipped with Arkansas. Arkansas has lost 3 in a row. LSU has a 54% chance, according to FPI, of beating Arkansas. And then a 97% chance of beating ULM. And even A&M is a coin flip. A&M's at 46. A&M, LSU has a 46% chance, according to that metric, of beating A&M. That's a virtual coin flip in a game that LSU has at home. I think LSU is going to beat ULM, and they're going to beat Arkansas. That'll put them at 6 wins, which will guarantee them a bowl berth. And then you see if you can steal an upset somewhere along the way. Maybe you manage to snag a game against Ole Miss this weekend on the road, or at home against A&M in your regular season finale. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you end up 6-6 and you lose to Ole Miss and Bama and A&M. Maybe. Or maybe you find a way to snag one of those games and you get to 7-5. Either way, it's not good enough for him to remain the coach. It wasn't going to be good enough. We all know that. And he's not going to be back. But I still think there's some opportunities for the remainder of the season for good things to happen on the field, because you have a coach that's going to more likely resemble the thing that he's good at, being a peacetime general, so to speak, instead of a wartime general. When stress is high, that's when he doesn't thrive. He thrives when things are good and pressure isn't mounting. And that's basically what he's going to have happen for the next month and a half. So, I keep thinking how different this conversation could be if they had run the ball late in the game against Auburn. And with the whole fourth quarter without running the ball until they were down. If they had run the ball against Auburn and won that game, LSU would have been 2-0 in the SEC, having won 4 in a row, going up to Kentucky with a completely different mindset, how different the conversation might be. But the reality is what it is. So LSU in Oxford against Ole Miss on Saturday, a game where the Tigers are 9-point underdogs. Lane Kiffin throwing up smoke screens about Matt Corral, but it is Ed Orgeron against his good friend Lane Kiffin. And Kiffin today, when he was on the SEC coaches teleconference, was asked a lot about Ed Orgeron, and he was asked if he and Ed have spoken since the news on Sunday.
No, just a text. I think, normally probably would have called him, but I think with the game of us playing them kind of was a little strange.
But he was asked more, like what it was like having Ed Orgeron on his staff. Remember, Ed was on his staff at Tennessee and at Southern Cal.
When you ask and I think back about it, the thing, I loved having him, as assistant head coach, recruiting coordinator, because we all aren't, perfect every day, full of energy every day. Like you have some days you're dragging a little bit, and it was just a great combo to have him. So if there was one of those days for him to, pick me up and let's go and let's, get on, we'd go and, be on 5 airplanes in one day, going to different houses and all those things up and down all over the country. So he's a phenomenal motivator.
Lane Kiffin talking about Ed Orgeron. Ed did reiterate today on the SEC coaches teleconference he does not plan to coach in 2022. Combined 3 years. In 2022, that he's going to take a year off, spend time with his family. As it's been expressed to me, Ed does have a desire to do TV and may actually find his way into that for a year and then back into coaching very likely in 2023 as a defensive line coach, recruiting coordinator. That role that Lane Kiffin just described, that probably best suits Ed Orgeron. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.